All right, folks. It looks like it's time for the World Edition. So we're going to see what we've got going on in the World Edition and see what's happening in the news and all along those lines. So a lot taking place, and we'll be glad to report on those various things, including things taking place in the Middle East and other places as well. So definitely, we know a lot's going on in the world, and we're always glad to be reporting on these things and seeing what folks have to say about a number of these news stories that they're finding out about as well, because definitely a lot's going on in the world, including the fact that the Sanae Takeshi, Japan's first female prime minister. Apparently, she's ordering an economic package to tackle inflation, and the new prime minister is preparing a large economic stimulus to tackle inflation. Sources say so. Definitely, it looks like she's the first female leader of that particular country, and she's a conservative who faces a stronger military. And apparently, Russia was smug about the Putin talks. Now they're on hold, and Moscow apparently is anxious. And Al Jazeera is asking why the planned Trump-Putin talks collapse and what it means for Ukraine. So Trump's hopes for a quick second summit with Putin have stalled out, and we'll see what goes on in that and if there's any development in that space. Melissa simmers in the Caribbean, posing a serious flood threat and a track that's hard to pin down. So, Tropical Storm Melissa could bring days of heavy flooding to northern Caribbean. So, definitely, that's what folks are saying is they're studying what's going on with that particular storm and seeing what kind of impact it might have on the U.S. And a woman was arrested over theft of gold worth $1.7 million from the Paris Natural History Museum. So definitely suspect charged in the Paris Museum heist. And we're not talking about the one at the Louvre. This was another one. And a woman was charged after 1.5 euros of gold was stolen from a Paris museum. So a Paris judge indicts a Chinese woman for theft of gold nuggets from France's Museum of Natural History. So apparently they've got folks that are just trying to target those French museums left and right and all along those lines. But the Louvre reopened 3 days after the French crown jewels were stolen. So that's some good news in terms of it being a tourist attraction. And the Louvre's attraction is its history. Apparently, that's also its weakness. So apparently, the Louvre burgers obtained a truck-mounted furniture lift to make off with jewelry worth more than $100 million. So definitely, this is something that's going on in the space of crime news and everything like that. And the France's former president, Sarkozy, will begin serving a 5-year prison sentence on Tuesday. So he's began serving that already. And he's to have permanent police protection in prison. So that was reported by The Guardian. So Zakarsky enters jail over campaign financing, and it looks like he's behind bars, but he will have permanent police protection while in there. And mosquitoes found in Iceland for the first time as temperatures in that region rise. So not a lot, usually in the cold, the mosquitoes are not trying to come out, but apparently they're coming out in that particular case. And the oldest hostage taken by Hamas among two deceased returned to Israel on Tuesday. So Israel and Hamas returned more bodies of Gaza, of captives, I should say, more bodies of captives under the Gaza ceasefire deal. So it looks like Israel has identified two more hostage bodies as Vance meets Netanyahu. And Ukraine says Russia overnight strike kills 6. Putin and Trump summit, like I said, has been shelved. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And Russia holds nuclear drills after the delay to the Putin-Trump summit. So swarms of Russian drones plunge parts of Ukraine into darkness as Zelensky turns to Europe again. Israeli settlers beat a Palestinian farmer on video as attacks mount during West Bank olive harvest season. And apparently, a Palestinian woman is in the hospital after being clubbed by mass Israeli settlers. Never seen something so extreme. Palestinian woman nearly clubbed to death by Jewish settlers is what the Independent reported. And Hedges orders prior approval for all interactions between military officials and Congress. Pentagon clamps down on military interactions with Congress, and apparently Pete Hedges is cracking down on Pentagon staff speaking to Congress. And by the way, I also understand that Pete Hedges is trying to, along with the approval, I think, President Trump, trying to get a military execution to go through. So we haven't had one of those in a number of years, but it looks like there is a push to have one in the near future. So definitely that is something that he has been talking about as well. and ICJ to give opinions on Israel's UN and Palestinian aid obligations. ICJ gives opinions on Israel's obligation to UN agencies in Gaza and the West Bank. The World Court to give opinion on Israel's obligation. So definitely we'll see what goes on in that space. And by the way, Japan's new leader to woo Trump with promises on pickups and soybeans. So Japan says it plans to tell Trump it will build up military and upgrade security strategy. And Japan's Takashi is to meet with Trump next week to discuss defense. And Bolivia elected a pro-market president after 2 decades of socialist rule. So Rich and Shaheen are calling for closer ties between the U.S. and Bolivia. And North Korea fired a ballistic missile, says Seoul. So North Korea fired a ballistic missiles as Trump prepares for an Asian trip. North Korea launched the ballistic missiles days before Trump's visit to the peninsula. And some folks, including the former ambassador, are saying that Trump got played by Putin. Former ambassador warns Budapest summit is a trap. So, but that summit is now off. So that's something that maybe won't even have to be a concern. And more than 40 people were killed in a crash of buses and other vehicles in western Uganda. And a drone attack in Sudan threatens Khartoum airport's reopening. So Diambele and Marcanas returned for PSG's Champion League trip to Leverkusen. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well in the news, as definitely a lot's going on. And Boris Johnson left the COVID inquiry in a hurry. He'll be pleased not to come back. So Boris Johnson was in a homicidal mood over COVID exams, and that's what WhatsApp revealed. So UK probably did go too far with COVID rules, Boris Johnson is saying. So lots going on in the world. Let's see what's going on in the U.S. Then I'll bring in my esteemed folks in the panel and everything like that. Paul Ingresia, Trump's nominee for Watchdog roll out after report of that racist text. So he's withdrawn after offensive texts allegedly emerged. So Trump's latest failed nominee makes the White House appear even more incompetent. So Trump's nominee for whistleblower office is withdrawn after reports of racist texts. And protesters erupt in New York City after ICE raids Chinatown over counterfeit goods. So New York City ICE raids net 9 arrests of illegal aliens from West Africa. 4 protesters were also arrested. So New York's mayor and police distance themselves from ICE raids amid Chinatown protests. And Netanyahu claim Israel is client state of Washington hogwash. So Vance is downplaying concerns over ceasefire in visit to Israel as Trump administration officials privately worry. Vance says he's not in Israel to babysit the Gaza ceasefire. And President Trump apparently yesterday hosted a Diwali celebration. I'll have to see if Steve went to that particular celebration, since he's been to a couple of Diwali celebrations, I know, here in the area, and possibly even up and down the East Coast. Historic Preservation Group asked Trump administration to pause its White House East Wing remodeling. So late night watches Trump go Hulk smash on the White House and wholly on criticism of White House demolition. Give me a break. So apparently there are some people, including some preservationists, that are not happy with this latest development in terms of the creation of this ballroom. Shooting by ICE officers in Los Angeles wounds motorists, U.S. Marshals are reporting. So ICE agents wounds Deputy U.S. Marshal and TikTok streamer who is charged with assault. U.S. Marshal and Mexican immigrants are shot during an L.A. traffic stop. And Democratic senator protests Trump's grave threats in marathon overnight floor activity. So Senator Jeff Merkley delivers a marathon Senate speech protesting Trump's policies. Democratic senator hosts Senate floor for 13 hours and counting to protest Trump. So Democratic senator rails against Trump administration in an marathon overnight floor speech. And a former GOP senator emerges from private sector with a new mission. Somebody has to step up. So John E. Sununu jumps into the New Hampshire Senate race. So he's officially launched his campaign for the U.S. Senate, and he's entered that race in New Hampshire for the seat he lost in 2008. And Mamdani's rise in New York City reflects the generational fight within the Democratic Party. So how an elite public high school set Mamdani on the path to politics is an article you can read in the New York Times, and folks are talking about in an article in the City Journal, socialism with a New York face. So definitely some people even call him Donnie the Internet's mayor. Infuriated Democrats ramp up battle with Mike Johnson over seating Gurgel. So Arizona Attorney General sues Mike Johnson for failing to seat this particular individual. So Speaker Johnson has been hit with a Democratic lawsuit over delay in swearing in amid the House shutdown chaos. So we still got this shutdown going on as well. And Plattner says he'll remove a tattoo that resembles a Nazi symbol. So the main Senate hopeful says he'll remove the tattoo ex-aide is calling anti-Semitic. So we'll see whether this helps his race against Susan Collins or not. And SNAP benefits won't be issued for November due to the government shutdown. SNAP benefits to halt in some states amid the government shutdown. And Newsom says Trump is endangering lives as shutdown sets stage for delayed food benefits. Millions of our Americans are at risk of losing food stamps next month amid the shutdown. I'd also heard a report that there might be a threat because of some of the shutdown and other things to Section 8 housing as well. So that was another article that I'd seen on another news source. So we'll have to see if that is true and if that's going to be a problem as well. And Colombia's leaders are accusing the U.S. of murder, prompting Trump to halt aid. So Trump's Colombia terrorists won't flip U.S. policies on drugs and trade, and Colombia's elections gives off-ramp for U.S. fight. Colombian killed in U.S. strike was on a fishing trip, the wife claims, and all along those lines. So saying that they were just on a fishing trip, not on a drug excursion. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out as well. Get ready to bring in my folks, see what they've got to say about a number of these stories. I've got Rick Rosner with me. I've got Sasha Starr with me, and somewhere in the background is Nick Palveda, and he may be joining us as well. I got a quick question, just a lighthearted one, and then we'll get to the serious topics and everything like that. But Rick, I had a great idea, and Sasha, you may enjoy this as well, even though it does involve a certain person that I know you're not a fan of, and I'm not a fan of as either. But I'm wondering, can we get together and get a world leader band? Because apparently the latest leader of Japan is a heavy metal drummer. She's a fan of Iron Maiden and I think Black Sabbath and everything like that. And then I was just out of curiosity looking up what other world leaders played instruments. And apparently Putin, that's the one I was referring to, Sasha, plays the piano. I think the French president plays the piano and King Charles plays the cello. So maybe we can get a world leader band together. What do you think? A band of world leaders, and they go out on concert tour.
I don't know what to say. I mean, there is a band consisting of best-selling authors, including like Amy Tan and Stephen King, Dave Barry. I really don't think you can get a bunch of dictators together to play tunes.
Okay, listen, enough of this nonsense. There's much more important and interesting things that are going on, and I'm surprised that, Mark, you have not
mentioned. I just read a bunch of them and everything, so I was just having a lighthearted moment.
You're right. You're okay. Okay, here's what's happening right now. So Trump was supposed to meet Zelensky last week on Friday, and it was Donald Trump who invited Zelensky, saying that there are certain things that he has to discuss it in person, and it's much better than on telephone, and therefore he asked Zelensky to come. Zelensky agreed. In the meantime, a day before Zelensky arrived, Trump had a telephone call with Putin. And all of a sudden, when Zelensky's meeting started, Trump changed 180%. That he told Zelensky that Putin is going to destroy you. You're going to be in ruin, so you better agree to all terms that Putin is offering right now. If not, the situation will get worse. Now, Zelensky informed about this talk European leaders. And the European leaders yesterday issued communique that regardless of what Putin is discussing or agreeing with Trump, it does not matter. The European Union will continue to support Ukraine and make sure that it will be victorious in this war with Putin. And Russia will pay reparations for all the damage it's inflicted on Ukraine. And for that purpose, they will start taking off money from the Russian funds that are being stored in Europe. So this is completely different position from Trump. And in this case, if what's happening, Trump will lose any influence, if he has any yet, on the peace between Russia and Ukraine. He will never see Nobel Peace Prize, maybe only posthumous after his death. Maybe they will give him some prize, but not before. And hopefully it will come in appropriate time. So this is the situation is. Now, during the talk with Putin, Trump agreed to meet him before the end of the month in Budapest, Hungary. For that purpose, Rubio and Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, they had a talk yesterday. And the talk ended that there are such a enormous difference between a peace process from the United States and Russia that there is nothing more to discuss. The meeting was canceled between Lavrov and what's his name, Rubio. And therefore, the meeting in Budapest is not going to happen. Besides, Russian president's plane in order to fly from Moscow to Budapest, it has to fly through the Polish airspace. And Foreign Minister of Poland, Sikorski, said that if the independent Polish court will tell him to ground that airplane on the territory of Poland and send the war criminal Putin to Hague, Sikorski said Poland will do exactly that. So therefore, meeting in Budapest has been cancelled for foreseeable future. This is Trump's diplomacy. He is a master negotiator. He is second to none. He is the best thing since sliced bread happened to the United States of America. This is what this moron and his foreign policy and domestic policy is not much better.
Trump is well known for being persuadable by the last person he talked to. He's highly distractible. He's got no overall philosophy to ground his beliefs. So, he talks to Zelensky, he says certain stuff. Then he talks to Putin, and he totally adopts Putin's point of view. Trump just kind of drifts in the wind of the last person he spoke to.
Yeah,
on a meeting, on a telephone call, and with Putin and Trump, Putin's team offered a new fantastic project. It's make a tunnel between Alaska and Chukotka in Russia, which is well known for its horrible winter temperature of -50, no roads, no ecosystem of anything. It's like a wilderness. I think it's not very different from the moon in terms of its hospitality, a lack of roads, lack of infrastructure of anything. There's nothing. So, and that would cost, according to Russian officials, it will cost around $70 billion and will be built in 8 to 10 years. And then they even propose a contractor for the actual building this tunnel, a company of Elon Musk by the name Boring. He has that company that built actually a 3.5 kilometers tunnel between, I think, Las Vegas Convention Center and one of the casinos. Few people have died during the construction, and it's unknown whether it's because of the weight of the car. I'm not so sure, but they're not building anything anymore. So how's he going to do 70 kilometers under
Yeah,
the
yeah. But Elon Musk has he has these giant digging machines that are 25 feet tall, maybe taller. They look like sandworms from Dune.
Right.
These giant drills, and they eat the earth, and then behind them they leave a trail of concrete lined tunnels. And yeah, they were supposed to revolutionize the world like every Musk thing, but yeah, I guess they're not doing it anymore. What is the U.S. supposed to get out of building a tunnel to Russia? Natural resources or something?
Yeah, 'cause he just said,
Well, first they have to build the tunnel first. Then they will figure out what to do there. I think you can offer as a service the feasibility study of this tunnel and to see that it will be useless money loser for the next 500 years. That's quite
that part
obvious.
of Sasha, is that part of Russia, other than being extremely cold, because -50 is extremely cold and everything like that, what is it known for? I think that's where Rick's going. So what are we supposed to get if we get a tunnel to this particular part of Russia? Is it known for like some sort of industry or something like that? That's what I think we were trying to
Well,
figure out.
I guess first of all, it's a pride of ownership of the biggest tunnel in the world. Then from Chukotka, they can continue on and dig the tunnel from Chukotka to, for example, Yelabuga. Yelabuga, that's where Russians build their drones. And then they will get another tunnel. So in 100 years, they will build a few very significant. They will own the structures until Russians will kick them out of it. But I don't think that that even Trump will agree to such.
Speaking of Trump and everything like that, apparently yesterday he told the GOP to stand firm, because you're talking about how he's controlling a lot of things, not just the discussions overseas, but even the ones locally, because we're in the middle of this government shutdown, and he's saying we will not be extorted. So Trump says Schumer and Senate Democrats are holding government hostage. We're shut down, and that's when he had this quote that we will not be extorted. And he said Social Security and Medicare are going to be gone. So he's warning that those things are about to disappear. And you heard me mention that SNAP is already in trouble and everything like that. So what is our thoughts around this shutdown? Because he's targeting Democratic priorities in an effort to end the shutdown standoff.
This is the second longest shutdown in history,
Right.
And I give you good odds that it's going to become the longest. If it goes another 2 weeks, it'll be the longest shutdown in history. And just Trump does not govern for the people. He governs out of he ran for president out of revenge because he was pissed that Seth Meyers, a late night comedian, made fun of him in 2014. And he ran to also Obama and Seth Meyers at the White House Correspondents' Dinners. They teamed up to make jokes about Trump, and he vowed revenge. And this is his revenge presidency, to reverse everything that people he doesn't like have tried to do. And he doesn't give a shit about the people. Yesterday, he presented the nation with a bill for $230 million for the inconvenience he suffered when people tried to prosecute him for involvement with Russia, for staging a coup attempt on January 6th, 2021. I guess all this stuff, he had to pay for lawyers to defend himself. And also it just pissed him off. So he wants America to give him $250 million for his trouble.
Right. And he wants, and basically my understanding, because I was reading a little bit about this as well, is that he wants his own government to pay him. So it's not even coming out of, so it's going to be government money paying him as president, because he wants, he's trying to get the money from Pam Bundy's department to actually.
And it's possible it happens because he's got all his hand-picked monkeys running his departments. It's crazy, but it's conceivable it happens. There's a related story, which is the state of Arizona is suing the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who has refused to swear in a Democratic representative from that state who was elected more than a month ago into Congress. If it's a Republican, Mike Johnson swears them in day of. Once the election results are in, they get sworn in. He's been waiting on making her wait for more than a month because once she's sworn in, she's going to put her name on a document that'll give him 218 signatures, which is enough to force the House of Representatives to vote on whether to release the Epstein files. So
between ICE and everything that ICE is doing, including in the DC and Maryland area and all along those lines, this construction of a ballroom at the White House and the entire government shutdown is, if I can use one of your words that you've used on this show basically before, is DC just become a basic shit show and everything like that?
Yes.
It's definitely, it doesn't seem like much is going on in DC other than chaos and turmoil.
Yes. But the markets kind of love it. Now, Sasha says that most of the fluffiness, the gains of the market, are because of like 7 big AI companies. But in any case, the stock market isn't crashing. And one reason is, as Sasha says, AI. Another reason is business kind of likes when government is all messed up, because then there's nobody guarding the hen house and business can do what it wants. The market went up in the last year of Reagan, when Reagan was all embroiled and in Iran-Contra scandal. It went up in the last year of Clinton, when Clinton was all embroiled in Oval Office BJs and impeachment and all that stuff. So the market likes chaos in government. The market does
like chaos and everything. I'm wondering how the economy of even certain states are impacted by their decisions as well, because
farmers wherever, if you're a state with a lot of farmers are getting in increasingly bad shape because of Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, definitely. They're being impacted and everything like that over there in Alabama, which is a deep South state, and everything like that. Apparently they might be having their first nitrogen gas execution later today, but the inmate is saying that he is insisting he's innocent and he actually wants the governor to meet him before execution. So he's saying, know the guy that's innocent. So do you think that she's going to actually go there? I think Kay is a woman and everything, and meet with
who, Kay Ivey or something? Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to look it up and see what the guy is accused of. That's not the shaken baby case, is it?
I'm not sure, but it says he was convicted entirely on clashing eyewitness testimony, and the Alabama was planning to execute him today and everything along those lines. So let me see which case it is. But yeah, I know that it was what that particular case is, and you can look it up as well.
Yeah, I'm looking it up, but somebody else should talk while I look at this.
Well, you look at that, and we can come back to that and everything like that. But yeah, a lot of people are paying attention while we're looking that up. What is our thoughts around this ballroom? Sasha, what do you think about this ballroom that's being built? I know that on one of the other shows yesterday, Nick was talking about it and everything like that, but it does look like they have done some serious damage to parts of the White House by building this ballroom and everything like that. So what is your take on the ballroom and everything like that?
Well, it's not the worst things that Trump did in his few months as a president. That's by far not the most important thing, by far. So American people wanted Trump as a president. They got it. They elected him. So now it's a payback time, baby. You got it. You own it for another 3 years or so. Enjoy.
So let's do the math. So there are big hotels in Washington, D.C., where if you want to have a big function, or you set up tents on the White House lawn, but if you want to rent a ballroom to have your event, it's about $100,000 to get a ballroom with all the trimmings. This ballroom is going to cost $200 million. So you're going to need to, you don't break even until you have 2,000 balls in this frickin' ballroom, 2,000 dinners. So it will never, recoup the cost of putting it up.
I think it's a horrible Democratic talking point that everybody here has swallowed wholly, because the thing is, the sad part is cost of construction's high, no matter how you look at it. And if you're in prime property, it's even higher. But what I see is groupthink by the Democrats. They all suck into, one guy goes, oh, it's expensive. Then everybody goes, oh, it's expensive. And yet, for some reason, and then they say, oh, well, they're not providing health care for all. Yet, for some reason, if it's a Democratic stupid expenditure like $2 billion, not 200 million, $2 billion for internet for all, they go, oh, well, that's okay. So what you have is basically Democrat stupidity, which is one reason I cannot be a member of that party either, because that's just a groupthink talking thing. Cheap. That's
all right. So it's not supposed to be government money that is going to the ballroom.
No, it is right now. It isn't. Right now, it's private money going in, but it doesn't matter. So what?
But it is grift and graft.
Wait.
Hold on.
The only thing I've heard that's dumber than this is listening to the Democrats saying to shut down the Republican fault. What the Democrats say. And then there's something even dumber you guys did. This King's March, that was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. So
all right, Nick, we wanted Nick, hold on, you're rambling, Nick. You're rambling, Nick. I wanted to hear what Rick had to say, because Rick wanted to jump in with some stuff, but you just rambled on top of what Rick said.
Kicked in. I got to go poop. I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
So what's your take on this notion? Because Nick, on a couple of shows, has been saying that the No King March was a dumb idea, and that there's no real king in the area.
So just a few things. I'll touch on the No King's March after touching on so both of Nick's ridiculous comments. So let's start off with the ballroom. The ballroom itself, as pointed out, is going to cost roughly $200 million. He said that he's paying for it out of his pocket, just like Mexico paid for the wall. But on top of that, what's funny is that $200 million, he's suing the government for $230 million. So it's kind of funny that kind of worked out where he's going to pay himself taxpayer dollars for $230 million just to turn around and use his quote unquote money that he got from the taxpayers to pay for this $200 million wall. So or this $200 million ballroom. So in other words, he's grifting, as Rick pointed out. And then on top of that, who's going to use this ballroom? Nobody. And he's supposed to leave in a few years. Well, he's spending all this quote unquote of his money to make this White House look like trashy Mar-a-Lago. And he's going to try and leave in a few months or in a few years. Yeah, we're going to see that in 2028, what happens there. So go to the No King's March, which was actually a good thing. It's people expressing themselves, being able to protest. And it was not violent. It was actually a beautiful thing to see 7 million people out on the streets trying to protest and air their grievances, because obviously this White House doesn't care and is not listening. So it's allowing them to speak out. And it is a good thing that they are speaking out, because it actually gives other individuals who are responsible the information they need to actually learn how to govern and to work together with other individuals. So a protest is just noise without action. And I think the Democrat Party is actually trying to use what happened with those 7 million people and actually learn what people are asking for, and they're turning that into something positive. So again, both of Nick's points are just talking points. Rick is spot on. Rick had mentioned this before, trying to point out the amount of money that it's costing. But again, he's suing the government for $30 million more than what he's saying that the ballroom is going to cost.
So let's talk about No Kings for a second. So an estimated 7 million people turned out for No Kings, 2,700 separate protests across the nation. So Rachel Maddow had an author on who's analyzed whether these protests can actually fight an authoritarian government. And this historian said they're not effective until you get 3.5% of the entire population to turn out. And somehow at that point, if you look at history, you get one person in about 30 out there protesting in the streets. That leads to a change in government. So if you do the math on the U.S. population, that's 12 million people. So if we can get another 5 million out there on top of the 7 million in some protest, somehow that might lead to change. I mean,
honestly, Rick, I think
98% of the population isn't interested in your No Kings protest, and No Kings means absolutely nothing to the people here in Europe who actually have kings. So the message was stupid.
So hold on, you're saying the message was stupid because you are in Europe.
This is the loony party is laughing, and
this is how
laughing at you guys.
So Nick, this is how ridiculous. This is how ridiculous. Nick,
about no war in Ukraine,
Nick. Nick, just to point out, Nick,
who descended from 31 million Americans are.
Nick,
this is repulsive. So
Nick, just to point out again, you're coming in with ridiculous talking points and emotional anecdotes. You're claiming that it didn't mean anything over in Europe, even though there were other places across the globe that also did protest as well and did also do a No Kings March. People are upset about what they are seeing going on in the U.S. And then just because if you feel, oh, well, everybody in Europe didn't do like the 7 million people did in the U.S., that's in Europe. They're not voting for the U.S. president. So your argument there again is moot. So sitting here making emotional arguments and emotional pleas to, hey, please listen to me. I'm going to say whatever that will kind of attract it. It's not working. Those are anecdotes that mean nothing in this discussion. So as pointed out, 7 million people did protest. Rick is talking about if there are 4 million people added on to that 7 million, that's enough to say that there is a movement against an authoritarian, which I think there are more that are agitated, and a lot of people just didn't have time to go out. So I think there is a movement across the population. The AP just did a poll where I think Donald Trump's numbers are sitting at 36 in terms of approval and 60 some that are at a disapproval. But then if you take across the board, he is underwater. People really aren't happy with what they are seeing going on. And as pointed out, people across the globe know how transactional this man is. Sasha talked about Putin earlier, talked about how, oh, we're going to help out Ukraine. And then he talks to Putin, and you know what he does? He changes his tune to, hey, we're not going to give long-range missiles now. So again, Nick, you keep bringing up these talking points with no factual basis, but you're saying them because you're trying to tie into the emotional feelings that got him elected.
333 million people didn't give a rat's rear about your No Kings March. 7 million did, and so you guys are all
333. Wait. Hold on. Nick, you're starting out. You're starting out.
About your No
300. Where are you getting the number of 300? Nick, where are you getting your numbers? Nick, where are you getting your numbers? Nick, what is this 330 million? Nick, what is this 330 million?
It's the people who didn't show up to the protest.
So wait. 330 million. What is that 330 million number?
It's the number of Americans who didn't show up to the protest.
So hold on. How many? What is the population of the U.S.?
340
million. So there are 340 million. Is that counting children?
Yes.
Is that counting babies?
33 million to 7. It's like a football sport.
So again, so now what?
Nobody
This is
see this
It's a
yell.
joke.
I agree, Rick. I completely agree.
Either come up with a
I got 7
point,
points, but my foot.
move on
The other
some other
Eh,
two
eh,
topic.
got 333.
I agree.
I
Nick
want-
is just running in here and trying to say this random numbers that don't mean anything, that weren't. He's just making up stuff to create an argument.
And
Nobody
you
wants to
can't
see it.
say, even from a statistical standpoint, and you know this, Rick, you can't say that because I can tell you for a fact, and this is just on a, as Jacoby would call it with Nick's thing, a personal anecdote kind of basis. I know of at least several folks that even here in the area where I saw 10,000 people protest that did not make it to the protest, that wanted to make it to the protest, but for whatever reasons, whether it was family, whether it was job, whether it was a number of other things. So you can't say that those numbers of the 7 million that showed up are in
Okay.
there.
I did a little bit
Mark,
more
I'll double your numbers. Okay, you got 14 million.
So again,
You'll still have 300.
Nick is just making up and just saying random things. Rick, I would love to hear what you're talking about, but Nick is just rambling over top of people.
Nobody said
And he's just
there's no doubt that
and then you decide
Trump
to
is in
die on
office
that
and
hill
everything like
again.
that.
And I'm going like, no wonder
But
why
I'm
you guys
also saying
lost.
that
It's
there
okay,
is
Nick.
a push
You're so
to get
easy
people
to
Here, we'll make this
to share their viewpoints.
Nick.
And all along those lines. So
I
there's
mean,
a number
really,
of
that
people
type
that
of
are
logic just
upset.
doesn't.
We don't even have to talk like how many.
It's as bad as saying the
how many people
Republicans
voted
shut
last
down the
election?
government because they won't do the Democrats.
Nick, you want to make a fun topic here?
You know,
Rick.
that is just so stupid.
No, Rick,
The
how many people
Republicans shut
voted
down the
last
government because they
I
won't do
did
the
more
Democrats.
reading. I
Really?
did more reading about the 3.5% rule.
So tell that to the
It
mountain
kicks
baby.
in.
Because
They give three
it play in
examples.
Peoria and doesn't play in Europe. It doesn't
They
play in
give
the
three
world.
examples of where when 3.5%
I wonder if what they think about Bangladesh. Hey, maybe we should ask Dr. Sharif. He's over there.
Wait,
Check this
let me
out.
Make my freaking point.
Let's ask him if he was.
Nick, can you let Rick finish? Nick, let's let Rick finish. Let's let Rick was just talking.
Dr. Sharif, did all the people
I'm your
excited
friend.
about the No King's March?
Jatavi, I'm your good friend. Don't worry about that. I do not say anything against you. Anyway, Bangladesh is very good. Kings is very important in Bangladesh. How? In every time when we reform for political parties, so that time the political parties, they reform a party, new party. Let's say right now Bangladesh has revolutions and all of the things. Students are trying to develop a new political party. We call it King's Party, because King's Party get all kind of government support, fund, money, powers, media coverage, and everything. So for Bangladesh, this King's Party concept is very good concept. Those who want to get business benefit and political benefit, they naturally get involved with this King's Party. Even I get invitation by the King's Party to join in their team, but I could not join in the team. But I like the debate of Nick and Jatovi. I am from debating communities, so let's start the debate. Jatovi, I'm supporting you.
You're funny. Well, let's listen to Jatovi. He always has a lot to say, so I'll be quiet.
So let's do the. I looked at the 3.5% rule, and they give several examples that it worked in the Philippines, it worked in Czechoslovakia, and it worked in the country of Georgia. But they shut down the country. The U.S. Did not come close to being shut down by No Kings, even though the U.S. is pretty frickin' shut down because the government is shut down. But the U.S. isn't set up for widespread protests to shut down the whole country. Countries like France, which have a tradition of nationwide strikes and work stoppages, and the UK, they're smaller, they're more cohesive. I'm not sure the nationwide protests can flip the government.
So I do think that nationwide protests can make movements. And as I said, a protest itself.
Wait, let me make one more point. We're not at that point yet. Trump did an outrageous thing when he commuted the sentence of George Santos, who'd been stealing from people through fraud for more than a decade, and $600,000 of ripoffs were excused, and
So,
one Republican spoke out against it. One
well,
Republican
Rick,
government.
that is par for the course with this president in terms of who he has released in terms of his pardons and his
Yeah, but
commutations.
my point
So,
is,
for example,
we're
there's
not going to get change until Republicans start flipping on him, and we're nowhere near that yet.
and that is spot on, because honestly, change is protests create change, but there has to be something with that protest to create that change, or that protest is just, again, noise. The country itself was built off protests, from the Boston Tea Party up to the actual Tea Party to the other sit-in protests that have all happened throughout the nation. You had the civil rights protests. All these things have changed. The women's suffrage protests. You had all these changes that happened based off of protests. Vietnam, you guys keep reminiscing about Vietnam. There was a protest that happened to change people's minds. And so with this No Kings protest, that is something that these politicians are recognizing. Hence the reason why, as you have heard, the Republican Party has started to ask for Donald Trump to be a part of the actual shutdown negotiations now, because they see that it is not going their way. They see that the polls are not leaning in their favor, no matter how much they are trying and pushing out propaganda, violating the Hatch Act, so on and so forth. So these things, there is something in motion right now. If you look at the Democrat Party, there is a youth movement. We talked about this the other day. That youth movement is a protest against what's happening with the Democrat Party currently. People want Schumer out. People want all these individuals out, but they're moving towards a youthful movement that is part of a protest within the Democrat Party in itself. Because if you look at the youth movement around these protests, these 7 million people, there's not old people sitting in those frog outfits or those unicorn outfits or those other inflatables that are jumping around the ICE facilities or protesting in the actual protests that are happening across the nation. Those are younger individuals that are using their power and their voice for movement. And there is that youthful push. And because of that, these protests are working. If you look at the polling data based on the exit polls of the actual 2024 or the 2024 race, the youth movement is what actually propelled Kamala Harris, because the younger individuals voted for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. If you take the educated vote, that's why they're attacking the education system. If you take sciences, those in science voted for Kamala Harris. I mean, you have these systems that are under attack because Donald Trump knows that he has to cheat, or in a way, because he's fearful of what's going to happen next year with the midterm elections, because he knows that his party's not going to come out during the midterm elections. So you redraw the lines, add more Republican seats if you can. But if the Republicans don't come out, the Democrats have actually a big chance to take over the House and take over the Senate again next year. And if that happens, Donald Trump's whole agenda comes to an abrupt halt, because he cannot just rule by executive order as he's doing right now. Hence the reason you have the No Kings protest, because there is no checks and balances on Donald Trump based on the government system that we have right now.
So when you look at how long it takes for stuff to happen in the U.S., you can look at women's suffrage from the first National Women's Convention to when women got the right to vote, 72 years. From the end of the Civil War to the Civil Rights Acts that, really changed the landscape for Black people, 100 frickin' years. The U.S. is not set up for rapid change. So, I mean, at least we have an election every 2 years, or maybe we can get a better House of Representatives in there, and maybe in 3 years we can get a better president. But
and you're right. You're right, Rick. We're not set up for rapid change, which is, one, a bad thing, and two, a good thing. Because swift change always comes with problems. Take a look at what Donald Trump is trying to do. Also, just to point out, he's using the idea of the shutdown as an excuse or as cover to do what he's doing in terms of, canceling these programs. He was going to do it without it. Look at what happened with Doge. Look at what happened before that, before we went to the shutdown. So the shutdown is just an excuse. However, when he did his rapid change on, like, for example, USAID, his rapid change on that has injured millions upon millions of people already. You have people dying based on what he did. Then if you look at his cuts in Doge, when he went ahead and did the rapid change and cuts in Doge, what is he doing right now? Hiring a lot of those same people right back that he had to fire. So rapid change is bad in one way, but also good in another. But it's mainly bad for the way government.
We've got Steve with us. I wanted to see what Steve got to say and everything along those lines. We're talking about what's going on with the government shutdown and everything like that. So what is on your mind, Steve? Glad that you were able to join us.
Give me 1 second, Mark. I'm just trying to find my notes. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't been following up. Obviously, the Obama healthcare subsidies are, something at hand. And I think the longer the shutdown goes on, I think you're going to start seeing more opportunities for Democrats to talk about furloughs and job losses, services like national parks and things like that being cut off.
Hey, Steve, just really quickly, I mentioned earlier in the show and everything before we got into this discussion between Jacoby and Nick, the idea that SNAP is in trouble and everything like that. And also, I'm hearing that Section 8 is in trouble as well. So will that be good talking points for some of the Democratic candidates, even in these midterm elections and all along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is going to give an opportunity for Democrats to galvanize the base, the progressives, even maybe the moderates and independents, chance to bring the party together. I think it'll help Governor Roy Cooper in the U.S. Senate race. I think it'll help Democrats like running in the primary, like Wiley Nickel, who's running for Wake County DA. I think that's kind of going to be an interesting race, but he's leading the polls. And it'll help me, hopefully, or anyone running for the commissioner race or any of the down ballot races. But I mean, the bottom line is, Mark, that I think that this is just an example of how divided our nation is. It was Lincoln who once said, "A house divided cannot stand." And I think the president's words ring truer today than ever. We can't continue to be this divided. And we put people in government to lead, to govern. The campaign is over for now. And you got to separate it. But I think the problem is the campaign never ends on both sides. And real quickly, I would like to get Sasha Star's perspective of, Ukraine and Russia exchanged missile and drone attacks. 6 people were killed in Kyiv. So we pray for Ukraine, including 2 children, which made me so sad, while the chemical plant was reportedly hit inside. And the strikes came after the White House said there were no plans for Trump and Putin to meet in Hungary to discuss ending the war. So, Sasha, you've been kind of saying this all along. It looks like Trump's really not going to really do anything to help Ukraine, and we pray for your country.
I'll tell you one thing, that instead of considering a Nobel Peace Prize for Trump, people should consider to bring him to Hague as a war criminal, because what he's done in the last several months caused death of tens of thousands of Ukrainian people who are the only one who can fight Russia and get rid of this threat of nuclear war, which is hanging over the West and all world for the last 80-some years. And Ukraine can solve this problem once and for all. And if it wouldn't be for the Trump effect, that would have started to happen already. And it may start happening very soon, because yesterday Europeans announced that regardless of what Trump and Putin will agree, Europe and Ukraine will not agree to anything, and it's all null and void. They can talk, they can meet, they can do anything what they want, these 2 criminals, but nothing will affect the resolve of Europeans to support Ukraine and fight until the full victory of Ukraine and making Russia pay reparations.
Yes.
Compared to position of Donald Trump.
This is absolutely. Well, we were so sorry, but anyway, but to go back, I mean, I just think that we have to, figure out how to bring back some normalcy to our country, to the presidency, and Mark, I just don't see. I didn't think government shutdown was going to go this long, and we're getting close to the elections, the municipal elections, the Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays. Who knows what's going to happen?
Steve, I don't have good news for you. This government shutdown, if properly played by Democrats, will go on for several more months.
Yes.
They have to stay on. They have 47 votes. And if they will keep it all together, all they have to do, they have to put something in their ears so they will not be able to hear anything. They have to close their eyes so they won't see anything. And just say no, 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 and all this. And Trump's government will tumble because people cannot accept that they elected people who cannot run the government. They control presidency, Senate, the House, the judiciary, everything what they need, and look what's happening. Out.
Well, the most interesting piece is if the Democrat Party hold true to their stance, which is on healthcare, and then because the worst thing that the Republicans have, well, they've done a number of worse things, but one of the worst things that they did is that they said that they agree to the subsidies, but they only want to vote on it when the government opens. That is the worst thing you can say in the middle of this, because of the fact that if you agree, why not do it now? If you are okay with it, why not do it now? That means that you are untrustworthy in your negotiation tactics.
Right.
So that right there tells you all you need to know about the Republican Party in this negotiation. So in the shutdown right now, yes, the Democrats have tons of leverage in this whole shutdown piece.
So Jatovi, earlier you mentioned that rapid change. Let Steve go. Go ahead.
So
okay, so wait, so we can look at recent examples of what you're saying being right. So George W. Bush had national unity after 9/11. He had 95% approval, the highest approval in history, and he wasted it by going to war against Iraq, a country that had nothing to do with 9/11, $1 trillion mistake. And then Obama had a super majority for a few months in 2009, and he didn't exactly waste it, but all he got out of it was the Affordable Care Act, which is pretty freaking rickety and is kind of the, what we're still fighting about now. And then Trump, hold on, one more. Trump claims the mandate now, and he's used it to just fuck up the country.
Yep. The tough thing about the Affordable Care Act, though, and the Affordable Care Act originally was supposed to have a public option. That got shot down. That was supposed to be the single payer thing that everybody is begging for right now, which is wild because at the time, the public perception of how they were pushing death panels and all this other stuff, that made it tough for that to even go through. Also because of the insurance companies and businesses pushing the fact that, it was going to take money from us, but then they got their hands in it, and that's what actually messed up the whole public option thing. So yeah, the Affordable Care Act was supposed to be a step, but due to the push by the Republican Party, and mainly the Republican Party, some of the Democrats who were sitting in those purple states that wanted to actually play politics, it was never used as a step to improve. It was always, hey, it's a problem, so let's get rid of it. It's a problem, so let's get rid of it. Rather than, okay, well, it has slowed that curve of actual increases in cost, but it did not actually stop that increase. That is due to us keeping public health as a business. And until we take public health out of it being a business, it's always going to continue to rise just like every other cause.
To go back to Obama, part of the problem with Obama was he was no drama Obama. He didn't want to directly confront the Republicans, like over Merrick Garland. He could have tried to pull a recess appointment of Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court, but he just backed away from it, thinking that the next president would also be a Democrat. Nope, it was frickin' Trump, and now the Republicans own the Supreme Court.
So truthfully, if you look at the history, Obama was that transitional president, which he did not see. And this was one of the flaws that he had, even though he was a younger president. He did not see, or he may have seen, the actual change in our politics coming, but he didn't want them to change and didn't buy into that change. And that's where Trump took off.
Comparing him to Hillary Clinton, I kind of wanted her because she was already pissed off. She already distrusted the Republicans. And so she would have been fighting with them. Would things have gone any better if she'd been constant as president, constantly fighting and calling out the Republicans? I don't know. But Obama got played a bunch of times.
Yeah,
Well, because again, they played that old school politics, and the old school politics is no more.
Yeah, there's a lot of that change in terms of the way we're doing politics and everything like that. By the way, just to let folks know if they were paying attention earlier and everything, that Alabama case was actually a 93 murder, and apparently the gentleman who is now about to be executed was sent to death row on the word of a co-defendant who testified under the threat of capital punishment.
It wasn't the shaken baby. He's accused or convicted of burning somebody to death over a $200 debt.
Right.
And when in retrospect, when they look at capital cases, I think like 8 to 10% of them turn out to be wrongly that we've killed 10% of the time. We kill somebody who was wrongly convicted. So it's not a great record.
It's not a great record. It's the reason that I think it's the prison project exists and everything like that, because they tried to find
Innocence Project.
Innocence Project. Thank you. Innocence Project.
Yeah, capital punishment is no more than glorified government sanctioned murder.
All right.
Yep. So it's about time for us to get out of here. We'll know at 1 o'clock we'll have Sasha's show on modern investment. I'm sure he'll be talking about NVIDIA and other things as well. And of course, we'll have Milan defending, as he always does, the S&P 500, because he loves to defend that S&P 500 and everything like that. But we'll see him and possibly Jim Eat at 1 o'clock. Right, Sasha?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So on that note, we're getting ready to get on out of here, and I'll see Sasha at 1 o'clock.
See you. Bye-bye.